Retro Rob's Gaming Videos.
Hey folks, Rob here, and today we're going to talk about the Sharp Twin Famicom. This is the AN500R. It was labeled as being from Sharp, and it is kind of from Sharp, but essentially really what it is there is a Famicom board in here. I mean, just a standard Famicom in here, and a Famicom disk drive. Yeah, and that is what's so special about this, is that it combines the cartridge unit and the disk unit into one device. And it's a great looking device. I really, really love the look of this thing. This looks like a system you want to play, so I have a lot of positive stuff to say about it. And yes, I really do like it. Now, there are some things you should know, and if you saw my pickup videos, I talked about this before when I actually picked this up. And you do not want to buy this system unless you are ready to put some maintenance time into it, because there's a pretty darn good chance that the belt in this drive is going to break and it will need to be replaced. So you need to be willing to take this thing apart and possibly realign it depending on how well the replacement goes. Also, well, I'm going to get into what ports are on here in a minute, but I'm going to talk about some general stuff about this. I've often heard you know what? I'm going to switch positions here. I'm going to get out the camera and let's look at this console while we talk. Hold on a second. All right, back to it, and here's a better view of the AN500R without me in it. The AN500R was basically a Famicom disk system. These disk systems were originally released in 1984 or 1985, and they were until about 1988 when they were pulled off the shelf due to rampant piracy. This particular model started production in 1986, the all-in-one model. Before that, it was a separate drive that you could buy and attach to a Famicom. And as I've said, even though this has the Sharp branding on it, this is really just a Nintendo Famicom inside. The actual same board is a standard Famicom with the standard drive attached inside of it. There were about, right around 230 games were made for this thing, for the disk system specifically. So I've heard it called a massive failure, but quite obviously it wasn't a massive failure. In fact, both Zelda and Metroid were first released on disc only and remained disc only for a significant period of time. Metroid specifically really suffered when it went to the cartridge-based system because it switched over to a password-based system. And of course the floppy allowed for it to be a save game system. So yeah, you'd have to enter a password in Metroid, and that would really suck. Back onto the failure thing, you know, there were about 4 million disc units sold combined. That means like the disc unit itself or this particular combo unit. That's all of them thrown together. But that's a significant amount of machines. So they're not terribly rare. I just really love the look of this particular one. Like I said it earlier in the last part of the video, but this kind of toy look is something that really appeals to me. I really like the kind of 70s vibe that this thing has. And we'll go over the controllers in a minute. But still, you know, pretty neat system. Let's talk about the ports for a minute. Okay, let's go through the ports quickly because there's a lot of them. RF out. At least I believe this is RF out because it's listed as having RF out. And I can find no documentation whatsoever in all of the interwebs on what the hell this port does. It's marked, but it's marked in Japanese. I can't read Japanese. It's a safe assumption, though. It looks a lot like an RGB port, huh? Yeah, but it isn't. Composite out. Mono audio, of course, because of the time period. That's pretty normal. Power adapter. By the way, this looks a lot like a standard 5-volt power adapter, doesn't it? But ends don't matter. What matters is what's inside, and this is not a standard 5-volt, so do not try to power it with it. Probably won't damage it, but it sure as hell won't work either. The other thing is, the number one cause of weird stuff is the power adapter, because they've made plenty of aftermarket power adapters that don't quite power the thing correctly. So if you're experiencing a lot of weird stuff, like little disk errors and such that don't make any sense, likely culprit right there. On the bottom, We have two of the expansion ports. Notice how they're tied together. I'm guessing this is because, as I have said, this is really just a stock Famicom with a stock disk drive attached to it, and I believe this just pigtails the two together. Oops. By the way, this is the cheapest plastic. This particular piece is like the cheapest plastic on earth. Really, really, what the heck? And it's hard to get back on there. And I'll deal with that later, instead of bothering you with it. Notice how the controllers are cabled in. Not 100% sure. I haven't looked at the board on this yet to see if they just pop off like they do in the Odyssey 2, which would be really nice, wouldn't it? So I'm guessing the Sons of Guns are soldered in there. Anyway, yet we still have more ports here. Look at this. Some more expansion ports. This is that standard Famicom port that you see on Famicoms all the time. Generally, there's a red cover over this. I don't have it. It's not a slide cover. It's just a pop-out cover. That's why it disappears. So if you're going to play Duck Hunt or something, you would pop your light gun in there. Not a standard NES light gun either. Here's another expansion port. This is one you see on a lot of NESs in the United States. And that is for other types of expansions as well. Okay, let's talk buttons and doohickeys. On the front, you will see the power button. There is no power light on this device. This is a disc light, so it tells you when the disc's being read. Reset button. Floppy eject button. Here's the floppies, by the way. I'll talk a little bit about those right now. They are harder than your average 3.5-inch floppy if you've dealt with those before. Notice how they are open and therefore very prone to damage. Later models of these actually did have a guard on here to try and keep grit from getting in there and ruining them. But this is the number one destroyer of discs, is the fact that they have no real protection other than the stupid sleeve that they gave you with it. Not a great idea, Nintendo. Not a great idea. But they are at least durably made. By the way, all the copy protection, I think I mentioned this before, is in the lettering on the top, thus making them totally pirate-proof. Unless you are a pirate, in which case you can get around that in about 2 seconds. Alright, so we're done talking about the ports on the front. Let's talk about the top. On the top, we have a standard cartridge port. I'm going to note something. With the switch up, this switch, see this switch right here? This switches between cartridge mode and tape mode. And it's important because see how the top door is locked now? It is in tape mode when that's locked. Something to look for on these units. If you are buying one, make sure that this locks. If it does not lock, the value of the system has just gone down dramatically. So, we're going to unlock that. Put a multi-cart in here, which tend not to work on real Famicoms, by the way, on these particular Famicoms anyway. There we go. They work on hack Famicoms. Anyway, there we go. And I can press this button to eject it. How cool is that? And that is it for all your buttons and doohickeys. Controllers. This thing's got great controllers, except they're attached to the back of the system permanently. You won't be replacing those anytime soon, unless you go inside and replace them. Or you can, of course, detach them inside by unscrewing these and replacing the innards, the gizzards, if you will. These are very nicely labeled 1 and 2. 1, 2. Look at that. That looks really cool. I love that style. Look at that 1 and 2. Very nice. Notice that on the secondary controller, there's no select and start. How crazy is that? Unlike the US, where select and start was on both controllers, the second controller has no select and start. What it does, however, have is a microphone. And believe it or not, there are probably... there are quite a few games. Not quite a few, but there's a few games that actually use it. Namely, Pitfall and Zelda that use it to kill enemies. There's Kid Icarus. You can talk in the microphone to bargain for lower shop prices. Try swearing into it a bunch. I'm not going to actually say that, but there's also another one called, I believe it's, what's the name of that thing? Let's see, SD Cayman Rider. Good, I got notes. In one of the mini games, apparently you can blow air into the microphone and you can get a windmill to spin. How cool is that? So, what I'm going to do is, just to end things out, I am going to pop a game into this thing and play it. And we'll talk about the summary, which is the system's pretty dang neat. Alright, so let's fire a game up on here. And here is the Famicom loading screen, which is what happens when you don't put a diskette in right away. Now, generally you might as well wait for the screen before you put the diskette in. And always remember, by the way, to pull the diskettes out when you're done. Because, as I mentioned before, they are very prone to getting dirty. Now, this is golf, and this points out something. Many of these games have an A. Honestly, I don't know if it's many, but some of the games have an A and a B side, and I accidentally loaded the B side, meaning that there's one game on one side and one game on the other. And this is not a pirate game at all. This is just how these came out of the factory. So anyway, Zanuck has golf on the B side in this particular case. And let's fire up Zanuck, which is a perfectly acceptable shooting game. I like it quite a bit. My skills are not, however, up to snuff, so you'll notice that I get killed a whole lot. I think I'm going to come back and play this a little bit more in the future because it's really quite enjoyable. And I haven't really figured out the power-up system yet. Now, this game does not have any advanced features for the disc, at least none that I've found yet. It doesn't have a save function, doesn't have enhanced graphics or sound, but at least it's a solid game to play on the disc system to show people, so I'd recommend getting it if you have one. A disc system, that is. Alright, earlier I talked about cartridges and how this system does not really handle hack cartridges. Well, just like the Famicom, it actually does handle hack cartridges. I wasn't really speaking fully to this issue. It doesn't run all of the hack cartridges because some of the hack cartridges will only run on a fake Nintendo system. Pretty funny, right? They're not even compatible with the original. I have one of those, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But here is one of my multi-carts, and it's actually working. Unfortunately, it is an amazingly crappy multi-cart. It has like 6 games on it that repeat endlessly. You gotta really watch that in multi-carts, that a lot of them do have that problem where they're just totally made to rip you off, which is hilarious considering all they're doing is pirating ROMs for the most part and throwing them on a cartridge. You'd think that at least take the time to make a whole bunch of games that are different on it. But oh well. You know, not just criminals, lazy criminals. Okay, so here's a cartridge that doesn't work, and this is what it looks like when you get one of these carts that isn't done right. Now, this absolutely works on my Famicom handheld, but it does not work on a true Famicom, which this is, nor does it work on the Retron 5. And there's actually a way, apparently, that you can do some jumpering and get this thing to work correctly, but given the cost of the things, which is next to nothing, and the amount of time you could spend doing that to get it right, there's really no reason for me to do it. I could just get another $5 cartridge that works. So that's how I'm going to do it. Okay, so let's wrap this up with the disc-based version of Bubble Bobble. The improvements here are a little bit better sound, and it has a save function, which the cartridge didn't have. So this is a good one to pick up. Okay, back to the system now. I absolutely love this version of the Famicom. In fact, I tend to move most of my consoles downstairs and keep only a couple upstairs that I play a lot. And I'm thinking this is going to stay upstairs. Number one, I just love looking at it. It's like candy. Look at that thing in red. Actually, you're not seeing it. You're seeing Bubble Bobble. But, rewind. Just freeze frame and look at that thing. It is beautiful. It looks like fun, and I really like that in a console. The second part about it is that it plays a lot of great games, so I like that. But I'm going to give you this warning. If you buy one of these, and I know I said this at the beginning, if you buy one of these, you are going to have to maintain it. Okay? The disk drive needs to be cleaned on a fairly regular basis, and you absolutely positively will have to replace a belt sooner or later. I bought a 10-pack of those suckers. That said, I mean, most of the time you're probably going to be playing cartridges anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But just be forewarned, this is a serious collector's device, even though they're not that rare. Alright, well, thank you very much for watching this video, and if you could do me a big favor, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, make some comments, and subscribe for more of them. Bye!